So let's begin by creating a new React project. I'm calling it Pokemon Showdown and I'm using white to create the project. The project has been created. Let's cd into it. And now we need to install the dependencies. Let's open our code editor. Let's go to the app.jsx and remove the boilerplate code like this. Okay, now let's start our server. So we do yarn dev and let's open it up in our browser. So here we have a blank React app. Let's start by first of all giving our game a title. Okay, so let's create a div and this as well. And inside of this, we will create h1 that says Pokemon Battle Game. Okay, now before we move forward, we'll use a CSS library to style this app. Now, because this is a game, we want some retro Pokemon game-like CSS. So we'll use this library called NES CSS. And as you can see that this gives us like retro 8-bit game style like styles. So we'll just install this. To install it, we go to the README and we need to fetch the CDN link. So here is the CDN link. We copy this, go back to our editor and navigate to index.html. And below the title in the head section, paste it. But this is for a local installation. We want one that's hosted on the CDN. So let's grab this one and replace this, save. And now come back and we have some styles apply. And as you can see, the cursor also looks like an 8-bit game cursor. So this is gonna look very good by the end of this. Okay. Now let's move on. Let's go to app.js and the div that we created, let's give it some NES classes. So you can refer to this documentation here in your own time to learn more about this library. And what you can do is just click on this code and this will give you how to use this via classes, right? So let's give some class. We'll call this NES container, save this. And now we have this container, right? And next we want that this should be rounded. So we'll do is rounded and we want this to be dark. So let's do is dark. Okay, so now we have a nice container. Cool. And you know what we can do? Okay, let's move on for now. Yeah. Now NES also has like a set of icons if you scroll down like these. So we'll grab this one with the Pokeball. Okay, this one. Let's grab this like this. And we need to change the class to class name because we are doing React. And here we have a Pokeball. Cool, isn't it? First of all, when the game starts, we want the player to select one Pokemon as his own Pokemon. And we'll present a list of choices. Now to present that list of choices, we need to have some Pokemon data. In this tutorial, we are not going to use any API or library because this is meant only for your logic practice. Okay, so we'll use some local data. So let's create a file called Pokemon data.js. Okay, and okay, so after we create this file, we need to populate it with some data. So I've already created some Pokemon data, which I'm going to just paste here. You can either type this out if you want, or you can go to the description and there is a link to this file which has this data where you can copy paste this. Now to go over this quickly, each in this array we have several objects. Each object is a Pokemon. It has a name, HP, which is its life, max HP, the same thing, and then its attack, total attack capacity, its sprite is nothing but the image, the type of the Pokemon, and an array for the Pokemon's attacks. Now each attack has a name, a damage count per attack, the accuracy of the attack, and how many times this attack can be used. Okay, so we have about 15 to 20 here. So now let's go on and list them in app.jsx for our player to choose. Okay, so to list this, first we need to create some state variables before we begin using this. Okay, so let's copy paste this, and our first state variable will be player Pokemon. Okay, so this is the state variable that will hold the Pokemon data of our current player, and this will be null at the beginning. Now we copy this and create another called opponent Pokemon. So this will be the opponent Pokemon. For this tutorial, the opponent will just be the computer. This is just a one-player game against a computer. Okay, and then we want a state variable called message, and message will be an empty string. Now this message is what will show when you win a game or you lose a game, things like that. Okay, now also note that this is not a React learning tutorial, because this is just to practice. If you want to learn React from the beginning, I have tagged that tutorial where you can learn React from beginner, theory as well as practice. Okay, so after we define message, we'll define another called is player turn. So this state variable will check whether whose turn it is, whether it is a player's turn or the opponent's turn. Okay, is player turn, and this will be let's say this is true because we give the first turn to the player. And after the turn we define attack logs. Okay, now attack logs is what that will store our history of all the attacks and all the damage that is dealt. Okay, so this will be an empty array at the beginning, right? Now we need to define a function called choose Pokemon. Like this, we are using arrow functions, and choose Pokemon will get a parameter called Pokemon. So this will be the Pokemon that the user clicks on to select it. Okay, and once we get that, we set player Pokemon, and we just unpack the Pokemon parameter that we receive. Okay, and why we are doing it like this, why not just set Pokemon as it is? Because we don't want to directly save it. We want to create a clone or a copy of the object before saving it, so that if in future there is some mutation or there is some change in this object, then this object won't change. Okay, next up is after we have set the player's Pokemon, we need to randomly set the opponent's Pokemon. Okay, so we'll create some a temporary variable called random opponent, and we'll do Pokemon data, and this is how you import it here. Pokemon data, and we'll do math.floor. Inside of that, math.random, because we want it to be selected randomly, and randomly based on the Pokemon data dot length. So we'll get one index randomly within the range of the Pokemon data array, and that index Pokemon from Pokemon data will be set to random opponent. Okay, and finally we set opponent Pokemon. Right, we set opponent Pokemon to be random opponent. Right, now in addition to the Pokemon, we also need to set the attacks of the Pokemon. Okay, at this level, so we'll create an attacks key and we'll do Pokemon dot attacks. And this will be like an array. So the same way we need to do for the opponent Pokemon. Attacks, and here we'll do random opponent dot attacks. Okay, so after we have selected both Pokemons, we need to show some messages. The first message we'll show is you chose the Pokemon dot name, and after that the opponent sent out the Pokemon name or random opponent dot name. Okay, after setting the message, we'll need to set the turn. So is player turn, which we'll set to true, and we'll set the attack logs to an empty array to ensure that every time the game is reset or a Pokemon is chosen, the battle logs are empty. Okay, so now we need to do something with this function. To do that, we need to first render a bunch of buttons. So let's go over and render the buttons. First, we'll check if player Pokemon .hp is null. So with this way, we check if the Pokemon is already selected or if a game is already in play or not. If a Pokemon has not already been selected, only then the select Pokemon menu is shown. And same way we'll check for opponent Pokemons, and we'll use the question mark to check for the undefined values, and we'll check if it's null. It's null, and when both of these are true, only then we'll render the choices. Okay, and so let's create a div, give it a class name called Pokemon selection. Now inside this div, we'll create an h2 that says choose your Pokemon, right? And now we'll create a div with the class name of Pokemon list, and inside of this we'll use the Pokemon data array, map over it, and we'll get each Pokemon like this. Sorry, the arrow should be inside here. And now we'll create a button for each Pokemon, right? And this button just says the Pokemon's name. And we need to add a key. So the key will be again Pokemon dot name. Now to give this button some styles, let's give it a button of type of button. So this is all from the Nest documentation, which you can check. Type, and then we'll give it a class name, of NES BTN. Okay, and as you can see, these are like game like 8-bit buttons, and when the user selects on it, something will happen. Let's say nothing. So because we have to bind the on click event handler, so let's do on click. Okay, and on click will do an arrow function and call the choose Pokemon function, and inside of that pass the current Pokemon like this. Save, and now when we click on a Pokemon, yeah, so nothing is here because the Pokemon has been selected, so this menu is hidden, but we have not displayed anything else. Okay, so let's display something, and we'll display like the message, and the message, let's display it at the top below the title in a paragraph, and we'll just do message. Okay, so here is the message that says you chose Pikachu, opponent sent Machop. All right, now before moving forward, let's also create the reset game button so that we can start a new game by clicking on that button. Right, so let's create a button that says reset game, and we'll give it the class of NES, is error. Right, so it's red, and when we click this, the game should reset. So this will happen after we create a reset game function. So let's create that. So inside the reset game function, we'll first of all set the player Pokemon to null. We'll set the opponent Pokemon to null. We'll set message to an empty string. We'll set is player turn to true. We set the attack logs to an empty array. So that's all we need to do to reset the game. So let's click on this. And as you can see, the game is reset, and the start menu is being shown again. Okay, cool. Now, next thing after this is, after the user has chosen the Pokemon, we need to show that Pokemon on the screen. So below this, we'll create a div. Now we'll give this class, give this a class name called battle. Inside of this, we'll give it an h2 and give it a class name of NES badge like this, and create a span and give it a class name of is dark, and inside of this span we'll say battle. So here is our badge that says battle. Now I guess we can also show some icon. So we'll do a span and give it a class name of is warning, and inside of this we'll create an icon, right? Give it a class name of NES icon and trophy like this. So we have a trophy and the badge displayed here. Now after the title, let's create a Pokemon status. Okay, so we'll call it div class name Pokemon status. Now inside of this we'll show an h3, and that h3 will be player Pokemon's name, right? And then we want to show the player Pokemon's image. So inside of source, we'll do player Pokemon dot sprite. The alt can be player Pokemon dot name, and we'll give this a class name. So if player Pokemon dot is attacking is true, then we say attacking. If not, we don't say anything. Okay, and then close. Okay. Okay, so now let's select like a Pokemon, and our player Pokemon is being displayed here. Now after the player Pokemon, we also need to display its life. Okay, how much is the life of the Pokemon, which would decrease after every attack taken. So we'll call a function called render life bar, and we'll pass it player Pokemon dot HP, the current HP, and the player Pokemon's max HP, that is the total HP that we start the game with. Okay, and then we should say a paragraph that says HP and player Pokemon dot HP. Okay, now we need to define this render life bar function. Okay, so let's go here and create this function. Right, now this should get two parameters, the render life bar, HP and max HP. We define a width percentage variable. Now this will be a division of HP by max HP, and we'll multiply that by 100 to get a percentage. And after we get that, we'll return some markup from inside here. It will be a div with the class name called life bar container, and inside of this we'll create a div with the class name life bar and give it some style. Let's say width, and this width will have the width percentage. Okay, because we want to dynamically control this width, and we'll just save this. So we have saved this. Now in order for this to appear, we need to apply some CSS. Okay, so let's go to app.css and go to the bottom, and here we'll try to create the CSS for this render life bar. Okay, so let's create the life. We can just copy the class from here. Okay, so life bar container, and here we'll give it a width of 100 px, a height of 10 px, and a background color of, let's say, triple D. We'll give it a border of 1 px solid, and this one, let's give it a position absolute and top of 0 and bottom, left of 0, and then the transition is when the Pokemon takes some damage and then it has to reduce, so it will reduce with some transition. A background color, this one, and then a height of 100%, and then we just remove these styles from here and paste them here, right? And here let's change this to triple C, give it some margin, 5 px in auto, and a position of relative. Save, and here is our HP bar. Just copy what we have already created, this div, paste it here, and just change this to opponent Pokemon everywhere. And as you can see, we have both of our Pokemons on the screen. Now what we want to do is display these in like a row. Okay, so we go back to our app CSS and we create a dot status class, and we'll do display flex justify content space between, give it some margin bottom, right? So what we need to do is now make this as a parent div. So we'll create another div which is here, and we'll remove this class from here, right? And which means that these two become the children of a parent div. Sorry, we need to copy this and paste it here, right? So now our Pokemon are displayed against each other like this. So now the thing is that there are a lot of styles to apply, and if we do the CSS in this tutorial, it will get really big. And since this is just a React logic tutorial, so we'll just focus on React. And so for now, let's just paste the CSS, the rest of the CSS here. You'll find the link to the CSS in the description as well. And so we get more time to focus on React. Okay, so we paste our CSS. After pasting the styles, this is how our app looks like. Now we need to do also one thing, that is we need to hide the battleground before the Pokemon has been selected. So we go back to our app.jsx, and we'll do player Pokemon.hp, right? And only if this is there, then we'll show the battleground, else not. So what happens is now player selects a Pokemon, let's say Bulbasaur, and our battleground is displayed here. Okay, now what let's also do something. We'll give our battle or our app a width of 100%, or maybe 100 VW, right? So it's always full width. So now our battle is being shown, and our opponent also selected Bulbasaur. Let's reset the game, try again. We selected Charmander, and opponent sent out Snorlax. So far our game is working well, and as you can see, it looks good as well because our Pokemon are also in a Pokemon battleground. So this looks good. Now let's go to the next part where we'll do the attacks. We'll handle the attacks, okay? So in our app.jsx, right? So now we'll check if it's player's turn. So if it's our player's turn and the player Pokemon's HP is greater than 0, which is the Pokemon has not fainted, and the same for the opponent's Pokemon, HP is greater than 0, only then the attack options should be displayed. So inside of this, we'll create a div, let's say class name attack options. Okay, now all the CSS is already pasted in. You can find that a link in the description. And here we'll, inside of the attack options, we'll do player Pokemon dot attacks and map over those. Do selected attack and we'll render a button for every attack. Now this button will have a class name of NESBTN and is warning to make it yellow, and this will say selected attack dot name, and besides it in parentheses selected attack dot damage, and DMG to show that this is for damage. Okay, and we need one more, this and this, right? And then we need to define an on-click handler. So inside of this on-click, we'll define an arrow function and call the player attack function, and we'll pass the selected attack as a parameter. Next, we'll define the disabled option to disable the button while the player is attacking, and do selected attack dot uses less than equal to 0. So we need to disable this button when a player has used all the amount of uses of a single attack. This is the button 1 and another parentheses, this, and here we need to define a key. So we'll do selected attack dot name as a key, right? So now we need to define the player attack function. Let's go up and define this function. This function receives a parameter called selected attack. Now first we need to check if player Pokemon and opponent Pokemon are present, which means they are set and have been selected. Then we'll set the message. Okay, if they are not present, then we'll set the message, choose your Pokemon to start battle, and then we'll return from here, right? Now if the Pokemons are selected, then we'll check if selected attack uses is less than equal to 0, and if yes, then we'll again return and we'll set the message that says no more uses left for selected attack dot name, right? And once this condition is also true, we need to check for the accuracy, right? So we'll get a random value, and if it's greater than selected attack dot accuracy, only then will the attack be successful. So we'll create a log for the attack log that says player Pokemon dot name try to use the selected attack dot name but missed. Because of the accuracy, the Pokemon missed the attack. And then we'll set the message to log, and we'll add a log that says log. Okay, and we'll need to define this add log function shortly, but for now let's continue. After the player Pokemon has attacked, we need the opponent, which is the computer, to attack as well. Okay, so we'll define a set timeout timer, and inside of that we'll set is player turn to false and opponent attack. We'll call the opponent attack function from here, and this timeout should run after 1 second, right? So now the player attack is complete, and after this we need to return. Now we need to define these two functions, that is add log and the opponent attack. So let's define an add log function first here. Like this, and this receives a parameter called log, and this will just set attacks log. This will get the previous logs, and then set the previous logs as well as the new log. Okay, so add log is defined. Right now, the thing is, we have only handled one case, which is when the attack is missed, then give the opponent a turn. Right now, what happens if the attack is not missed? Right, so we need to handle the actual attack now. So if the attack needs to happen, we need to play the attack sound. Okay, so if attack sound dot current, so this is a ref we'll define just in a bit. We'll do attack sound dot current dot play. Okay, so now let's go at the top and define this ref here. So let's do attack sound equals use ref, import it like this, and here we'll just set it to null. We need to calculate the damage, so we'll say player damage equals selected attack dot damage, and then calculate the opponent HP, and we'll do opponent Pokemon dot HP minus player damage. If this is greater than equals to 0, then we'll set the value. If it's less than or equal to 0, we'll just set 0. Okay. And now we'll set the opponent Pokemon again to update the HP. So to do that, we'll unpack the existing opponent Pokemon and then update the HP with the new opponent HP value, this one, right? So the opponent Pokemon's HP is updated. Now we need to reduce the attacks count, number of uses count by 1. So minus equals to 1. Now we'll need to add some commentary as well to our game. So let's define a commentary to be empty. Now if player damage is greater than 10, we'll set the commentary to it's super effective. If you have played some Pokemon game, then you would know statements like this, right? Now, if player attack dot name is called confusion, right? So then we'll set some commentary that says confusion, and so confusion is not always effective. A player is not always confused. So we need to randomize this. So we'll check if math.random is less than equals to 0.5, which means 50% chance that the Pokemon gets confused after being hit by a confusion attack. So if this is true, then we'll set the commentary to plus equals to the opponent is confused, right? Or the opponent and opponent Pokemon dot name is confused. So after this, we'll need to create a log, and we'll say you used the selected attack dot name for damage damage, and then we'll add the commentary, right? And then we'll set set message, set the log as message, and also add the log to the battle logs. Okay, now after we have done this, we'll check if the opponent's HP is less than equals to 0 after taking the attack. If yes, which means the opponent has fainted and you win, right? So we'll do player Pokemon dot name wins and return, right? Now if the opponent has not fainted, then we'll need to give them an attack turn. So we'll create a set timeout. Like this of 1 second, and we'll set the is player turn to false, and we'll call the opponent attack function. Right, so our player attack function is complete. Let's now go to our opponent attack. Right, now in our opponent attack, we again first need to check for this condition. Most of this function will be the same as the player attack function. So if Pokemons are not present, return. Right, now we need to get the attacks of this Pokemon, and we'll do opponent Pokemon dot attacks dot filter attack, and we'll check if attack dot uses greater than 0. So these are the available attacks which are still left. So if available attacks, if the opponent has any attacks, dot length is 0, which means there is no available attack. We'll create a log that says opponent Pokemon dot name has no attack left, and we'll set the message to log, and then we'll add the log, right? And we'll return the function. And the thing is, we need to do this also for the player attack, because if the player doesn't have any attack left, then this is also what should happen. Okay, so if selected attack dot uses, we can also do that, right? Or I think this is a bit more comprehensive. We get all the available attacks for the player Pokemon, and if then player Pokemon dot name has no attack left, right? And this is also good to have for each specific attack. So this one is for each attack, and this one is to check for all attacks, right? Check all attack and check each or current attack, right? So we need to have this for the opponent Pokemon as well. So after this, and this will be for the opponent Pokemon, right? So before we can do this, we need to select an attack for the opponent Pokemon. So const selected attack, right? And available attacks, from the available attacks we'll choose one randomly. So math.floor math.random into available attacks.length. So we have a selected attack now. The opponent has a selected attack, and after this attack is there, then we can do this selected attack dot uses for this, right? So now this works. After we have this, now we need to check the accuracy for this Pokemon. So we can just copy this from here, from the player attack, and paste it here. So here we'll check accuracy, and instead of player Pokemon, opponent Pokemon, but missed, set message, add log, and player turn will be set to true. And I think that's it, yeah. Only player turn will be set to true. So we have checked for the accuracy. Now if attack doesn't miss, then we need to play the attack sound. So paste this, right? And after this we need to calculate the damage. Yeah, we'll just copy the rest of the function, right? And paste it here. Right, so after the attack sound, so instead of player damage, we'll do opponent damage, and this will be the player Pokemon.hp minus the opponent damage, and again player Pokemon.hp minus opponent damage. Okay, so we are calculating the new HP for the this will be for the player HP. Okay, after taking the opponent's attack, the player's HP. So we'll set this to HP, and instead of set opponent, we'll do set player Pokemon to the current player Pokemon and a new HP. The selected attack uses is decremented, and we create a new commentary, which is opponent damage. If it's greater than 10, then it's super effective. If player attack dot name, or more like selected attack dot name, is confusion, and 50% chance, the player Pokemon, so player Pokemon is confused. Okay, let's correct this up here as well. Now we come back and you used selected attack dot name, or more like right, the player Pokemon, or instead we can say that your Pokemon name is confused. Okay, after that the log should say opponent used, right? So the opponent is opponent Pokemon dot name used selected attack dot name for opponent damage, right? So after that we set the message, we set the log, and we'll check if the player HP is less than 0. If yes, then you lose and opponent Pokemon dot name wins, and we return. And we'll do a set timeout. We'll set player turn to true. And so this was basically our last function that we'll use. Okay, now let's go here, let's try this out. We select Pikachu, and we have our two attacks here. So let's click on quick attack, and so This is the second message after the opponent's turn. The message is also there for after our turn as well, but it's just that it's that fast, so we need to display our battle logs to get a better understanding. Okay, so let's go here and we'll try to now render our battle logs here. Right, let's create a div, give it a class name, we'll call it nest container, and with title and is centered and is dark. Okay, so now inside of this div, let's create an h3 with the class name of title that says battle log. Okay, create a div with the class name that says lists. Inside of this, create a UL with the class name of nest list and is disk. Inside of this, we'll map over the attack logs that we have been creating, and then we'll get the log and index, and we'll create a li with the key of index and a class name of nest text. Right, so now we need to wrap the battle and the battle logs in a div that says style display flex. Okay, so that they are on the same row. And then we go here and we do this, and the thing is we'll display the attack options within this div. So this should also have a CSS class of attack logs, so it's 50%. Right. Okay, so there seems to be some issue with the attack logs. So what we'll do is we'll change the logic. So instead of making it an array, let's make it a string. Okay, and in the add logs, we'll do set attack logs, and we'll do attack logs plus, we'll add a line break, and we'll do plus and add log. Okay, and we'll go to our attack logs, and instead of displaying it as a key, right, so then when we go to add log, we need to do something else. We'll do attack logs and like this, right? So our attack logs are being shown like this. Okay, you know what we can do? In addition to this, we can instead just do this as a list tag, right? Yeah. So we'll dangerously set inner HTML, and we'll do this as attack logs. So let's refresh, select a Pokemon. Yes, so now let's remove this. Okay, so now our battle logs are working fine, and we can keep using some attacks, and both of our attacks are logged, so you used and Psyduck used. So including the attack, the commentary as well is attack. Now we need to play some sound. Okay, and let's see what happens when one of us wins or loses. So HP becomes 0 and you win, Gengar wins, right? So our game is working fine. Now we need to add some sound to it. I've added the battle logs. We can add a tag for the sound here, audio tag. And this is the ref that we created earlier, and this is the link for a sound file online that I found. Okay, let's save this. Now let's try and do an attack. Yeah, I don't know if you hear that, but this is pretty good. Yeah, so now this is like a almost real Pokemon game. So to add the trainer sprites, let's go back, and here I have pasted some data of trainer images from the web that can be loaded like this. So then we go back to our Pokemon rendering here, and below the life bar of the Pokemon, or below this, we can display our player. Okay, or maybe here within this div. Right, so here is the trainer for Alakazam, and similarly we'll render a player for the opponent. Okay, dot opponent. So trainer sprites dot opponent. So our trainers are here and our Pokemon are also there. So to bring our Pokemon on the ground, let's do this, and similarly let's do this. Try and give this a height, a suitable height. So for example, for the battle, instead of giving it a height of 90 VH, we can, so this looks better now. Okay, so our HP is reducing, but this life bar doesn't update to show that. So let's fix this. Okay, so here we need to, the width percentage must be a percentage, okay, like this. Right, so now the life bar is being shown, and when you do something, okay, let's reset the game. Right, so the life bar also updates when the HP is decreased, the number as well as the bar. Okay, so this is a pretty you can say low effort, or you can say plain React game without using any external SDK or library in just React. So we did this to build up our coding logic. So for example, like displaying a life bar and also calculating HP scores in a game while attacking, encountering different scenarios when the Pokemon misses, when the Pokemon has no attack left for each attack and for all the attacks, and for the commentary, for the accuracy, for attacks like confusion. So you can take some homework. What you can do is, we handled confusion, right? We handle confusion. You can also handle attacks like paralysis. So when Pikachu does Thunderbolt, you can do like a 40% chance that the opponent Pokemon is paralyzed. So you can write some logic for that yourself as a homework. As a homework, you can also collect some more data on more Pokemons, or increase the attacks that we have here, and extend the game yourself. Okay, so if you like this video, please like this and subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to create more tutorials and help you become a better programmer.